We're back. We're live. It's 1 o'clock on a Monday, our second show of the year, and we are honored to have Ed Delong, who is co-director of both Seymour and Scope. We're going to get into those acronyms in a minute. From Manoa, and this is Research in Manoa. Welcome to the show, Ed.
Thanks, Jay. Such a pleasure to be here. Happy New Year.
Thank you. And Xinyin Kuaila, that's Mandarin, yeah.
Thanks.
Although it doesn't start till February. That's the Chinese New Year. Anyway, I feel like we're really stepping off this year. You guys had your designation as Association of ASM.
Yes, American Society for Microbiology.
American Society for Microbiology.
Milestones site,
yeah,
actually.
So it's Ocean Station ALOHA was designated as a milestone site for them. What does that mean?
That's exactly right. Well, it's quite an honor because the ASM itself, American Society for Microbiology, goes back more than 100 years and kind of documents the very beginnings of microbiology in the U.S. all the way through now. And one of the programs they started is this designation of historical sites that have had big impact on the field. So as one example of a site, a fellow named Selman Waxman at Rutgers basically found most of the antibiotics we use today. And so his site where they did all that work at Rutgers became a ASM milestone site. And then there's many other sites, Hopkins Marine Station, where a lot of Nobel laureates actually were trained. That's one of the sites. And so to have Ocean Station ALOHA become an ASM milestone site is a huge honor, and I think a real attribute to, or a testament to the hard work that all the folks that have been working at the station for close to 30 years now have been doing. Yeah.
So there's so much to talk about, but I go free association many times. So at the station, every month or so for the past 30 years, the vessel that's available to you, which is what, a U.S. Navy vessel, yes, a research vessel, leaves Snug Harbor, I guess, is that where it's tied up?
That's right, Jay.
Which is along the way to Sand Island, and it goes 100 kilometers out to the northwest of Hawaii. And it does research right out there in the ocean. And in this case, the research is it's out of Seymour. It's microbiology. It's microbial oceanography. Yeah.
That's right, microbial oceanography, and that's an important point in a way, in the sense that what we're trying to do is understand the whole ecosystem, the ocean, and how it works, its physics and its chemistry, and its variability over the course of seasons and years, and how that relates to the biology and microbiology that drives a lot of the processes that happen out there. And you know, the microbes out there are super important. One good example of that is, to put it in a catchphrase, mass to gas, or gas to mass is what I mean. And what I mean by that is the CO2 in the atmosphere and the nitrogen in the atmosphere is actually captured by these microbes, those gases, and turned into mass. And that mass then in turn fuels the rest of the food chain. And it turns out it's important in really climate change and what's happening to the CO2 in our atmosphere, because some of that gas to mass can sink down to the deep sea, taking some of that CO2 with it. So it's that balance between atmospheric gases, dissolved gases, and other elements in the seawater, and how the microbes process them that makes the cycles of the elements turn, the food webs function, and as well how the balance of elements goes in the context of our own activities, anthropogenic activities. Yeah.
So, something occurred to me in that the way the world works. I mean, first question is, when you went into this field, which I guess was in college at UC Davis, did you know what you're telling me now?
No, I didn't actually. There's been a lot that's gone on in the past 40 years or so. A lot of what we've been learning, a good amount of it has happened right out here actually, in terms of some of the specifics about the microbes and what they're doing. In fact, one of the most abundant plants in the ocean wasn't even known until about 20 years ago. And in fact, it's the most abundant plant out here in the ocean, a little tiny cell called Prochlorococcus. It's a cyanobacterium, but it's fueling a large part of the ecosystem, maybe 50% of the primary productivity is flowing through these tiny little guys that can take CO2 and sunlight and make new cells that feed up into the rest of the food chain.
Yeah, so in a way, for science, it's revelationary, for us to find this out, realize what you're finding out at Ocean Station ALOHA, as a matter of the way the world works. But the other thing that strikes me, I have to ask you this.
Yeah.
It's changed. It's actually changed. I mean, we're talking about a dynamic process. The rules that we could have found had we been looking carefully 40 years ago were not the same rules as today because of climate change, change in the environment.
Yeah, that's right, Jay. And probably, actually, one of, I would say, the triumphs of the folks working at Station ALOHA over the years has been documenting some of that change. So, for instance, we know from the Keeling curve that CO2 is going up each year, and that's driven by anthropogenic processes, burning fossil fuels and so on. Well, the ocean's like a sponge for that CO2. And so what you can see over the nearly 30 years of work at Station ALOHA is the absorption of that CO2, which then gets converted into an acid, carbonic acid basically, and you can actually see the pH changing in lockstep with the increasing CO2 in the atmosphere. And so, of course, these kinds of changes in ocean chemistry, as well as potential changes in biology downstream, are things that all scientists working in natural systems are really interested in learning about, and it's going to affect all of us downstream.
Yeah, I mean, even if you followed it in the newspaper since Al Gore's movie,
yeah.
You wouldn't realize that it's not just that the ice caps are melting. It's not just that ocean temperatures are higher. It's not just that the storms are greater, and those are the things I think people take as axiomatic.
Sure.
It's that everything is changing.
It's true, Jay, and that it's globally and also in many cases regionally or locally. So one example of that are these areas called dead zones, these places where the oxygen's getting drawn down and having huge effects on the biota. Again, a downstream product of our activities, yeah.
So if you made a list of all the things that you wanted to research at Seymour, say 5 years ago, and scope, we'll extend those acronyms, but
yeah.
The things that you wanted to research as a scientist in this area, that list already would be old. And now you could make a list that would be a lot longer because there's more things that are being revealed to you.
I'd say that's a fair statement, Jay. And I'd say that that's the way that we have to be. It's the way science works. I mean, we learn one thing or we see one thing, and then we hopefully can be nimble enough to change our trajectory to follow the way the world's changing.
Yeah. Let me back up a little bit. Why did you go into this in the first place? This is pretty sophisticated stuff, and at the time you went into it, it was really beyond, it was really pushing the envelope, and now we find that it's mainstream.
Yeah.
That it's as important as any other science going on, which is a great statement for Seymour and Scope. But why did you do it? What led you into microbial oceanography?
Well, I guess I'd say, Jay, it's those two words. And the oceanography part's easy because as a kid, I got an overdose of Jacques Cousteau. And I love the ocean. I really do. I've always loved the ocean. As a kid, I grew up in Northern California, playing in the sea all the time. And so that's just deeply ingrained in who I am.
Yeah.
So the oceanography part's easy. The microbial part, initially in college, I was at UC Davis, and I kind of thought, well, I want to get a career where, I can have some stability. And so at that point in time, I was aiming at being a med tech in a hospital someplace. But then over time, I was able to get a job in a research lab at UC Davis. I had a great mentor, Paul Baumann. And he taught me that, A, that research is fun, and that B, it's important, and you can make a living doing it, basically. And so then I was able to combine that microbial with the oceanography, and I haven't turned around since.
Yeah, and now you're at the point of it. So, they always say that there's one guy who, stimulates you to go into a certain area, and it's a life choice.
Yeah.
Sounds like Paul Baumann as your mentor there.
He helped launch me, but you know how that goes? I think it's almost like a series of stages that you go through, too. So my PhD mentor, Art Yayanos, he was a biophysicist and studied deep sea processes and microbes. he inspired me a lot too, and I went off to work in another fellow's lab, Norm Pace, who's a molecular biologist, and he inspired me too. So I'd say, mentorship's a series of stepping stones, really, and I'd like to think of that when I interact with students and pass it along.
Yeah. So this is something we learned just now. You can have more than one mentor. And maybe it's a matter of keeping your mind open to look for mentors and reacting to them and finding new and better paths every time you find a mentor who you want to follow.
Yeah.
Now, where does Dave Carl play in all this? Because he's my mentor, so I wonder if you have, what kind of relationship do you have academically with him?
So Dave is my mentor too, in many ways. We met pretty early on because when I was doing a postdoc in Indiana, if you can believe that, with this fellow, Norman Pace, a colleague of mine, Tom Schmidt, and I came out to go on the second Hawaii Ocean Time Series cruise in 1988. And
second out of how many now? Hundreds, yeah.
Yeah, and so we got to meet Dave, and he really kind of showed the great aloha spirit in welcoming us. He's always been welcoming. I think one thing to say is that Dave has welcomed with open arms, and I don't know, hundreds, thousands of people who've come out to work. And I was lucky to be one of those early on, back in the 80s. And since then, we've interacted on lots of collaborations over the course of my whole career, actually, and had a lot of fun doing it. And that kind of led up to the proposal for Seymour, actually. So Dave and myself and Penny Chisholm at MIT, John Zera at UC Santa Cruz were the PIs, the people that wrote the proposal for Seymour. And that started this wonderful legacy since 2006 that has led to even more mentorship by Dave, kind of in a different form for me in terms of how to become a leader. And so I'm still learning, but Dave's still teaching.
So MIT, what was your connection with MIT? You were teaching there for a while?
Yes, yeah. So I had a couple academic jobs. My first professorship where I got tenure was UC Santa Barbara, Department of Ecology, Evolution, Marine Biology. And then I did this wonderful gig for 7 years at a place called the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute. And that's a place that Dave Packard started to be the kind of sister institution with the Monterey Bay Aquarium, because his daughter is the CEO there. So, but the institute is to kind of push the envelope on ocean science and technology. So what Dave Packard did is he just threw a bunch of engineers, scientists together at this wonderful institution in Moss Landing, California, said, go have fun and push the envelope in ocean science and technology. So they make all kinds of robotic underwater vehicles, and they go off on lots of expeditions in Monterey Bay. And I had this wonderful time there for about 7 years. And for somewhat personal reasons, had decided to move back to the East Coast and got this opportunity to be a professor at MIT and jumped on it and had a wonderful decade there from 2004 to 2014. So it was a great place, yeah.
So we're going to take a short break, Ed.
Okay.
We're going to come back, and then we're going to extend those acronyms.
Okay.
Seymour and Scope.
Okay.
At SOEST, the biggest acronym of them all, School of Ocean, Earth Science, and Technology. That's Ed Delong. He's a co-director of Seymour and Scope. We're talking about seeing more at Ocean Station ALOHA. We'll extend that acronym too. We'll be right back.
Aloha, my name is Kirsten Baumgart-Turner, and I'm the host of Sustainable Hawaii at thinktechhawaii.com. We air live on the internet and also on Oceanic Channel 16. I'd invite you to come for a fresh new show every Tuesday from 12 to 1 o'clock. I try to bring on guests that give us a different viewpoint on aspects of sustainability in Hawaii, as well as trying to unpack some of the difficult concepts of measuring and achieving sustainability, particularly with regard to sustainable economic growth and prosperity in Hawaii. Please join us every Tuesday from 12 to 1 p.m. Mahalo, aloha.
Hi, I'm Ethan Allen, host of Likeable Science on Think Tech Hawaii. Come join us every Friday at 2 p.m. when I interview interesting scientists about what they do, why they do it, and why we should all care about it. It's a lot of fun to see. We hear, and you can learn interesting stuff. You'll hear all kinds of fascinating science, and we know you'll have a great time. Hope to see you then. Bye-bye.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're exploring the ocean and microbial oceanography with Ed Delong, a professor and co-director of Seymour and Scope. And we're going to talk about ALOHA too. So first, let's extend the acronym. Seymour, the Center for Microbial Oceanography Research and Education.
You got it,
Your
Jay.
baby. So what does it do in general?
So what it implies in the name, we study microbial oceanography in both research and education aspects. And so what's wonderful about these, it started out as a science and technology center. So NSF has this wonderful program called Science and Technology Centers that span all kinds of disciplines, from optics to cybersecurity to nanotechnology, you name it. But the successful centers that are awarded these grants basically pull together people from all kinds of different parts and disciplines that can focus on this one big topic or problem. And so we were able to successfully compete for one of these centers. And in the process of doing so, we got a number of institutions involved. Woods Hole Oceanographic, MIT, UC Santa Cruz, University of Oregon, Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, along with UH, where the center was based, in SOEST, to pull together all kinds of assets, from robotics and engineering to molecular biology and genomics to biogeochemistry and oceanography. Pull all these things together to see how far we could really decipher the microbial world. And you know, as you said, we're learning a lot really fast. The microbial world is invisible. We can't see it directly with our eyes. And every time we invent new tools, we're able to learn new things about the ocean. And so part of what happened in Seymour was kind of this development of both ocean robotics and that sort of technology, as well as the ability of looking at genomes. So, you know, genomes are basically the DNA blueprint that tells you basically the instructions for how to make any organism.
And it's a relatively recent science, genomes.
It absolutely is. It hadn't been practical to do out in the natural world until only recently.
Yeah.
But now we can really look at the natural world in a different way and tease apart all the parts to try and learn how all those parts work together to maintain functioning ecosystems.
It's a great time to be alive in science, and especially ocean science. And you know, it occurs to me that all these institutions you've been naming, when you started, when you first had your apotheosis back there in UC Davis, Hawaii was not really on the scientific map. It was a potential, but it wasn't, you know, kissing cousins with all of these fantastic institutions everywhere. Now, I suggest to you, tell me if I'm wrong, that Hawaii's right there. Seymour is right there. SOEST is right there. We are in the top echelon of oceanographic research facilities.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, SOEST in international ratings ranks very highly in terms of the geosciences. So in that sense, the whole school is up there. And you know, within the area of microbial oceanography, I'd say we're at the top, if not at the top, just because we've pulled together all the right talent. We have a great leader in Dave Carl.
You heard that? Did you hear that? That's really important. Did you hear that? That's really important. Okay, so let's go on for more acronyms. SCOPE, that's relatively new. It's newer than Seymour.
Yeah.
What does it stand for?
Simon's Collaboration in Ocean Processes and Ecology. And what SCOPE really is, let me tell you about how funding works in science. So Seymour is always going to be there. Seymour is about the people that work here at UH and all our collaborators, Center for Microbial Oceanography.
They come from miles around.
Yeah.
From continents they come.
We'll always be there.
Yeah.
But the Science and Technology Center program that NSF runs has a 10-year lifetime. And so Seymour is in its 10th year. So the formal funding from NSF for the Science and Technology Center ends this August, actually. And so realizing this, Dave Carl and I said, well, we better do something. We want to keep our momentum. And we were extraordinarily lucky to have this opportunity with the Simons Foundation, a private philanthropic foundation that funds basic science, to propose this continuation, if you will, but a new center that involves some of our old colleagues, but also a lot of new colleagues, to push the envelope even further in terms of learning about how the ecosystem operates at Station Aloha. So the Simons collaboration has funded us for another 5 years, so we've got the continuity, and we believe if we do a good job that we're going to keep that momentum going.
Oh, that's great. And so it means that your future, at least for the next 5 years, is assured.
Yes.
But then, of course, you're going to be around a lot longer than that, because climate change is working on us right now.
But I have
we need you.
I have to add the proviso, provided we do a good job.
Okay.
But we're all trying our best.
Yeah. Now, Ocean Station Aloha, I was in the Coast Guard, right?
Yeah.
And we had ocean stations. We don't have any ocean stations anymore, the Coast Guard. We have electronics that see things instead.
Sure.
But you still have ocean stations, and Aloha is not just hello.
No.
Aloha is not just hello.
It's Dave Carl's acronym once again. It's a long-term oligotrophic habitat assessment. And again, the vision, and this is to carry out a vision like this is tremendous, to have such a long-standing time series that can actually make the quality-controlled and detailed measurements over decades worth of time that allow us to see how the ocean's changing. So it is a long-term habitat assessment. And it's been extraordinarily successful, and it's also been adaptive because it started out in '88, but then Seymour got started up and could build on top of the foundational oceanography that Station Aloha has done over the years. And now, on top of that, Scope can continue on the momentum. So it's quite remarkable that we're able to do this and be adaptive, not only in terms of the continuity, but also in terms of the technologies we can apply as time moves forward.
And the common denominator is you keep on going out there, that vessel,
Yes.
which is about 15 years old now. That's the second one that's been used, right?
Yeah, it's about midlife, I think, in ship years.
Midlife.
Yeah.
So if I'm, say, a student in Bulgaria, and I want to come to the top of the line and study oceanography, microbial oceanography,
Yeah.
I come and I say to you, Ed, I want to be on that ship. What's the name of the ship again?
It's Kilo Moana.
Kilo Moana. K-I-L-O, Moana, like the shopping center.
Correct.
I want to be on Kilo Moana. I want to go out there. What are my chances of getting out on that ship? Because I really want to go out there. I want to see what you're doing 100 kilometers away.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's see. I think it would depend on that kid in Bulgaria's commitment, drive, and degree.
Yeah, sure.
What I recommend to a lot of undergraduates who want to go into grad school, because getting into grad school here at UH would be a wonderful opportunity to get on board the ship. To do that, you just have to ground yourself in a solid discipline, in my opinion, to really get into oceanography and biological oceanography. So it could be anything. You could be a whiz in chemistry. You could be great at physics. You could be a wonderful mathematician, or a biologist, or a biochemist. But if you focused on one thing in your undergrad and excelled at it, and then showed a commitment to wanting to work in the sea, that would be the path I'd recommend.
Yeah. Okay, so you decide that I have the degree, I have the commitment, I know a little about chemistry and physics.
Yeah.
Yes, I can come on Kilo Moana. Okay, and I get on Kilo Moana, and what is my task? I mean, what investigation am I going to be associated with? Is it my investigation or your investigation? I mean, how do I connect up with a question?
Well, so typically with students, that would be done through individual professors. And maybe you'd want to work with Dave Carl on the nitrogen cycle. Or you could work with Matt Church on sedimenting particles. Or maybe Greg Stewart on viruses. It's kind of like picking your flavor in terms of when you start to specialize. And so that would be the route to take. And if you became a grad student with one of those folks, you'd probably go out to sea and focus on those particular problems that would then lead to your thesis dissertation at some point.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm out there. And what do I do all day? This is a wide ship.
Yes.
It's a stable ship, even
Yes.
on the high seas. It's not going to rock too much.
Yeah.
Good platform for who knows what. Am I gonna do diving? Am I gonna get in a diving bell? Am I gonna sample seawater from many fathoms below? What am I gonna do?
So typically for the sorts of microbial oceanography we're doing right now, there's kind of an initiation for new people, at least in my lab, and that's like filtering a lot of water. But seriously, we collect water from all the depths,
Yeah.
bring it up on board ship, and typically work it up.
Yeah.
And it could be worked up for chemistry or for microbiology. You might be filtering and counting cells. You might be collecting cells to make DNA from, to do the genomics.
Wow.
You might be doing chemistry. So it's
Every profile you can think of.
yeah, and it's a lot of teamwork too. So if you're going to do that, that means you're going to be helping out on deck.
Yeah.
You'll stand watch. You'll probably hold taglines to help things from swinging around when we're lowering them over the side. You'll kind of learn kind of those fundamental skills on board the ship that entail what it takes to get out there and get those samples.
I think this is a great time for us to play the movie. We have, you know,
It's great.
this is a movie that was made at the time the American Society of Microbiology designated Station Aloha as a designated site. What was the term again?
A milestone
site.
in microbiology. By the way, I saw your think tech on that very topic, and I want to thank you, and Dave Carl thanks you too very much, because that was a great way to condense a lot of jargon and such into just the great celebration that it was. Yeah.
Thank you, Ed. We had a lot of fun making it.
Yeah.
And we were really impressed to be there and see the speakers, including you. Okay, so let's take a look at that movie. And this was made by Eric Grabowski, who is also in Seymour. And he's the audiovisual guy up there, does great work.
The Center for Microbial Oceanography Research and Education, or Seymour for short, is a National Science Foundation-sponsored science and technology center based at the University of Hawaii. Marine microbes impact climate change, form the base of the marine food web, and control the global cycling of biologically important elements such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and oxygen. As Louis Pasteur stated, the very great is achieved by the very small. Seymour strives to understand the big picture of microbial oceanography. Building on the foundation of research and insights from the Hawaii Ocean Time Series program, Seymour scientists analyze information from vast space and time scales, linking molecules and genes to populations and ecosystems. Discoveries abound in the field of microbial oceanography. Consider this: the most abundant photosynthetic marine microbe, Prochlorococcus, was discovered just 25 years ago. Given the global significance of marine microbes, Seymour researchers are required to think big and to take risks. On land, we perform laboratory experiments and devise new approaches to uncover ocean's mysteries. Our prime location provides ready access to the world's largest natural laboratory, where we perform experiments, test innovative equipment, and maintain monitoring stations. Seymour is the complete package, committed to quality research, education, and community outreach. This requires an interdisciplinary and diverse team who are invested in partnerships with scientists, students of all ages, educators, and communicators. Recognizing that the future depends on innovative scientists and an educated public, Seymour trains teachers, mentors students, and supports tomorrow's leaders as they build careers. In research and in action, Seymour is dedicated to sustainability. We participate in the long-term monitoring of carbon dioxide in the surface ocean. October 2010 saw the opening of Seymour Holly, the first LEED Platinum certified research building in the state. We need scientists in a changing world. Seymour is exploring new frontiers and investing in our future, from the health of our ocean to the habitability of our planet. We invite you to come along on our voyage of discovery.
Oh, gosh. What? See, by the way, that's Seymour behind us, and that's the same building that was in the movie.
Yeah.
So what is that movie telling us? It's a beautiful movie. It's got an excitement about it. If I were a younger man,
Jay, you can come out and filter water for us anytime you want. You're up to it, I'm
It's
sure.
like crossing the equator. It's a ritual initiation. Yeah, so you had a thing on there about climate change, acidification. What's that about? What can you learn, and why do people want you to learn it?
Well, it's super important to know how, well, the whole globe is changing in the context of our own activities. So here's an interesting thing. For the past, we think microbial life's been on this planet for maybe 3.5 billion years or so. And in fact, it's been microbial activities that have had the most impact on gases in our atmosphere and the cycling of the elements and all these other processes. That's 3.5 billion years. In the last, say, 150 years, mankind has gone from 0 to equaling the impact on the elemental cycles that's evolved for those billions of years. And so just getting a handle on what those changes are and what their trajectory is and how they'll impact life in particular and our own kind of desires and needs is super important. So yeah, what you saw there was that relationship between CO2 in the atmosphere that we spoke about and the ability of the ocean to absorb it. And of course, the absorption of that CO2 changes the pH.
Yeah.
And what that pH change will do to many forms of life is still unknown. We know it's going to have a big impact, for instance, on corals, because that the decrease in pH, is going to have a huge effect on any organism that has a calcium carbonate shell. Basically, will dissolve it. So those decreases in pH are going to have a huge effect, and we need to know what trajectory they're following and how that influences other cycles in the ocean.
Trajectory is what I get out of that, because
Yeah.
At some points in science you're looking to find out what's going on right now.
Yes.
Tell me the process.
Yes.
What's involved chemically, physically, all that. But you're at a point now, I think, where you can maybe, and if not now, then soon, you can look ahead. You can make a trajectory of what's happening in the world.
So that is a great point that you make, Jay. And actually, SCOPE, the Simon's Collaboration on Ocean Processes and Ecology, has deliberately decided to take a particular tack. And that's just to focus almost exclusively on Station ALOHA. And the reason for that is that any kind of ecosystem you look at is going to be complex. The neat thing about this ecosystem is that it's representative of a huge swath of the northern Pacific Ocean. So it represents a big ecosystem. But by focusing on this one place, we can get a better handle on how all the different parts interact and what their trajectories are likely to be, so that we can make some predictions. If we tried to study everything everywhere, it wouldn't be possible.
You wouldn't catch all the variables.
Yeah.
But if you have a platform that's always in roughly the same place, looking at the same variables, then you can do that trajectory.
Yeah, that's correct. And there's a whole bunch of developments that are going to allow that to move forward. And one of them is, for instance, some of these robotic vehicles and remote sampling and sensing, because the reality is the ocean's under-sampled. Going out once a month is great to do what we can do, but that's only once a month. What happens during those other, 29 days of the month, for instance? So having remote sensing, having robots that can maintain a presence all the time, which is happening now at Station ALOHA with robotic gliders and other automated underwater vehicles. We have basically a more continuous measurement of what's happening that will lead to better predictions.
So if I'm from Bulgaria and I'm focusing,
Do you speak English, Jay?
oh yeah, and I'm focusing on robotics,
Yeah.
you really want to talk to me, because this is, I get the sense of that there is no discipline you're not interested in. You want all the scientific disciplines you can get your hands on.
We have some really talented people at Seymour too that actually span. Steve Poulos is a guy who's been with Dave for a while, and it spans from electrical engineering to computer science to navigation to underwater robotics, and that's just one thing. So multidisciplinarity is the name of the game. It's where it's at, and absolutely necessary. And I think it's both exciting and actually a great challenge for young folks today who really need to embrace that. I think in the old days, guys like me, we could just be a microbiologist, and stovepipe, in our academic ivory towers, and that worked okay.
No more.
Not anymore. It's all about transdisciplinarity, basically.
And it's also it's collaboration and connection around the world. I don't think it was the designation of Station Aloha. It was another time I was up at Seymour, and I noticed that the people around me. This happened, I think, also at the designation, but the people around me came from everywhere. It was sort of a global representation. Seymour is a sort of a magnet to bring people from everywhere in the world, and they all study and they want to know and they want to exchange. Am I right?
It's true. I would say Seymour and also Ocean Station Aloha. So again, Seymour is kind of built on the foundation of the Hawaii Ocean Time Series. And the Hawaii Ocean Time Series, as I said, probably has had thousands of people come, go out to sea, or download data to study this area of the ocean. So, and these are people from all kinds of disciplines. So a couple of years ago, they celebrated the 250th hot cruise, a Hawaii Ocean Time Series cruise, and that may have been one of the celebrations you were at even. And yes, there's a whole village of scientists that range from, physicists to chemical oceanographers to microbiologists that are working together to try and understand the system.
So where is it going to go in the future, Ed? I mean, clearly you're there. Scientists, they go hither and they go yon, and then they find a place. It's just they find a place they really like.
Yeah.
And they stay there, and they do their best work there, and they make great contributions to science. And is this your place?
Oh yeah, there's no question for that. I've been circling around this place since probably the late '80s, and working with Dave. It's interesting because even if you're not here physically, you certainly can collaborate remotely. And I was lucky enough to parlay that into actually being here as a presence. And yeah, this is it for me. This is my focus for sure for the rest of my career. And also, the important point to make, we talked a little bit about mentorship, is to enable the next generation of scientists and technologists to do the same. And so I think that passing the torch on to students is a super important thing to do, and that's another thing that we do at Seymour.
So, I always ask this question. It shocks you at first, then you realize I had a good reason to ask it. Why do I care?
Yeah. No, it's a good question. Well, I think we touched on why you should care a little bit earlier. And I'll get on my microbiology soapbox for a second, because it's.
Well, once you, that's our soapbox camera over there. You can
very
address
good.
that one.
Because it isn't often realized. The microbial world is all around us. It permeates any living ecosystem, any living thing. Microbes basically are the master chemists of the planet. So they basically, as I said earlier, can take gas and turn it into mass, which helps recycle elements and feed the food chain. They're also amazing in terms of their adaptability. They're microbes that can grow at 114 degrees Celsius. That's above boiling point at atmospheric pressure. They can do that because they're at the high pressure of the hydrothermal vents. So high temperatures, extreme pHs, many different kind of extreme habitats microbes have permeated. And if you really want to care about microbes, so I'm getting away from the ocean a little bit, but I'll reel it back. You're an ecosystem, Jay. You are composed of billions of microbes. In fact, there's more of them than there is of you in terms of your own cells. And they're really important for your health in terms of your daily cycles and circadian rhythm, how you digest your food. Your homeostasis is not just done by the human genome blueprint, but also by the microbes that live with us. Every living thing is in an ecosystem, and sometimes they are an ecosystem like we are. Okay, so that's an anthropocentric view, but from a global view, we really need to care, because the microbes have been maintaining the stasis and homeostasis of the elements on this planet for billions of years, but now they've got a new rival in terms of a group of organisms that's really perturbing the cycles, and that's us. And so learning how the microbes are doing it and how we're working with them and what we need to do to basically learn some lessons from them, particularly about recycling, is super important. And as you can tell, I'm a zealot, but you cannot look at a living system and not come away with the fact that the microbial component is central to how it functions. So that's one reason.
Last question. You know, we just finished COP21, and there are still people in the in Congress who don't necessarily feel that climate change is happening.
Yeah.
Save them.
I think Donald Trump said he believes in weather, but not climate.
He may have to find out the hard way. And so what you have is this really incredible historical tension going on, you know, between the guys who were trying to do the right thing politically,
Yes.
nationally, in climate change and dealing with it, and the scientists who are trying to find out enough stuff that they can be useful to those political guys. And then you have the rest of the world, which may be a little blah about actually taking action. And, you know, I mean, a lot of people liked what happened in Paris. I might ask you that too. But my question really is, are we going to be okay?
Well, I'm unqualified to give you a definitive answer on that one, Jay, and it's a hard question. I think it is true that the time element is critical now. Things are happening fast. We've seen it in our lifetimes. So we can't delay too much longer, and I think that's been one of the messages. With respect to what's going on in Congress and so on and so forth, I think the best that we can do is educate and keep learning more. And you know, if this generation of U.S. congressional folks don't get it, you know, we need to educate the next one.
I know education is a broad-based activity, and I know you guys are doing an enormous amount of it, and it's not just what happens, you know, in Seymour Holly, but it's what goes out of Seymour Holly, all the publications and all the scientific journals and all that. But you could come back, talk to us some more, maybe educate a few people in the process.
I'd be delighted to do that, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Ed.
Yeah.
Ed Delong, the co-director of Seymour and Scope, and an important player in our world, in mine anyway.